I never drink wine. So let's get this cleared up because I've been seeing a lot of people on niche message boards talk about this. Because this is the big cope regarding the current state of the gaming industry. That kids, they only play Roblox. They only play Minecraft. They only play Grand Theft Auto. They only play Call of Duty. They don't play on Nintendo consoles. They don't play Nintendo games. That is exclusively a thing for millennials. And this is a gigantic cope for a lot of reasons, right? Especially because like kids don't buy games for themselves, but the long and short of it is that like this is like a giant conspiracy to try and like create this like fan fiction alternate reality where today's generation of kids will not grow up to be Nintendo fans because they're too busy playing Minecraft, which is on Nintendo consoles, and they're too busy playing Roblox, which is has lost $12 billion over the past couple of days. I'm not like read up on the Roblox situation. I don't know what's going on. I don't even know what it is. Honestly, I knew it was popular, but I do think this needs to be emphasized more. Is that it doesn't matter how popular COD, Grand Theft Auto, Roblox, Minecraft are. It doesn't matter what flavor of the month title is like popular with kids today. Like, are these titles going to eclipse Nintendo titles in relevancy? And the answer is no. It doesn't matter how many units they sell or how much people like them and how much they obsess over them. The reality is, like Nintendo is able to grow and innovate with their own franchises in a way that other developers cannot hope to do. So, for example, Donkey Kong Country, this huge revitalization of their classic Donkey Kong, right? Uh, Lots of great titles in the 90s. We got Diddy Kong Racing, a racing spinoff. We got Donkey Kong 64, 3D Collectathon. And now, 25 years later, we got Donkey Kong Bonanza, a completely new, original 3D action game, right? Donkey Kong is the protagonist of all these games, but they're all completely different. They all play differently. They're all different genres, and I think to a certain extent, like they were made by different people, right? Like again, they all have that common thread of being a Donkey Kong game, but these are games that were like made for completely different audiences on completely different hardware, and yet have kind of proven the long-standing relevancy of the character. In 2031, Donkey Kong will be 50 years old. Okay, like wrap your mind around that. But you know, for a long time, people had this mindset that like Donkey Kong wasn't an A-list franchise, and people were confused about him being in the Mario movie and the theme park and like the release schedule on Nintendo Switch 2, and we're seeing over and over again that these games are doing extraordinarily well. Not just heavy hitters like Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza, but smaller budget games like Nintendo Switch Welcome Tour and drag and drive, right? So Nintendo is able to like they are perfectly comfortable putting out like minor hits, sleeper hits, lower budget games, and just have like major success story after major success story, right? Donkey Kong Bonanza comes out, sells like however many million units, and then they put out Dragon Drive, which is a modest success in its own right. When you compare that to what Take Two has to do, when you compare that to what EA or Ubisoft or Konami, Capcom, Square Enix, what those guys do, what you see a lot of is that they are overly reliant on like one or two major franchises that keep the lights on. Square has like their RPG line. Capcom has Street Fighter. EA has like the sports games. All that. Um, like Roblox is just Roblox. Like Minecraft is just Minecraft. Like Minecraft is never going to break away and put out some major hit with the Minecraft brand because when people think of Minecraft, they exclusively think of Minecraft. Like it's a lot like Pac-Man in that sense, where it's this huge major cultural phenomenon, but it's never really been able to successfully expand outside of that initial core concept. When people want to play Minecraft, they want to play Minecraft, essentially. So Minecraft isn't a brand on par with Pokemon, with Super Mario Bros, with anything else that Nintendo is doing. Minecraft at some point is going to fall off and become irrelevant, and Nintendo is going to keep putting out like new, interesting, innovative games. Like I think it's already pretty telling how that's going to happen. Games like Tears of the Kingdom feature far more extensive building mechanics than anything in Minecraft. Donkey Kong Bonanza features far more elaborate environments with far more destructibility uh, features and action, way better than Minecraft. It's only a matter of time until they produce something that completely just ruins Minecraft and completely destroys it and leads to its complete implosion and nobody really talking about or playing the game anymore. It is inevitable, right? Minecraft is only relevant because of streamer culture, right? And with Roblox, you know, Roblox is even worse, like Fortnite is even worse in this regard because Minecraft had like some weird has like some genuine cultural impact. Roblox was something that like the kids were obsessing over. This was the game that was supposedly meant to destroy Nintendo and was meant to occupy kids' attention and time away from Nintendo consoles and their characters. And what happens? A major controversy sinks the entire brand with no real hope of recovery. You know, a major title like this has failed to establish a brand on par with Nintendo. And this is a tried and true formula. We've seen this happen with Grand Theft Auto, with COD, with Halo, especially with Doom. Like there were all these franchises, Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy. Like there were all these franchises that were propped up and like worshipped by the community as like Nintendo killers. Games like Mega Man, games like Devil May Cry, games like Ace Combat 4, games like Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy X. Like, there were all these games that were supposedly meant to be like Nintendo killers, and yet none of them have had the long-standing relevance and appeal that Nintendo games have had. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time is still considered the best game ever, while Metal Gear Solid has completely fallen off the map to the point where nobody even really remembers it exists. Unless it's to acknowledge just how outdated and lazy it actually is. Metal Gear Solid is shockingly primitive compared to The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time in all the ways that actually matter. Ocarina of Time was the one that innovated the 3D action game space. That was the one that like was a huge genre busting thing. And meanwhile, Metal Gear Solid was carried entirely by the voice acting and the cutscenes, with no real like thought put into the actual stealth gameplay at all. Games like Roblox, like Minecraft, like Fortnite, like they're all cut from the same cloth. These are all like super affordable games that are like free to start or free to download or like whatever that like coast by purely on cosmetics, on the microtransactions. Nintendo isn't competing with companies that are like actually putting out $70 games that are actually outport Nintendo. They are competing with like free to start games that like stupid kids get into and start putting money in because they don't know any better. Right? This is the reality. You're not competing with like real people who are putting a reasonable amount of money into games. You're competing against whales. People like DSP who will throw like $20,000 a year into WWE Legends. Like, that's the mobile game market. That's Roblox. That's Minecraft. They will endlessly sell you DLC for this slop, and people will just keep like eating it up because like, well, it's Roblox and Minecraft. Like this is not going to lead to a sustainable brand. You know, like eventually, like Roblox is imploded. Minecraft will follow, Grand Theft Auto will follow, COD will follow, and then like Nintendo will have a complete monopoly over the video game industry. Like that's what we're leading towards. Is that people are going to get sick and tired of putting all this money into mobile games and start putting it to like where it actually matters. High quality hardware featuring high quality games. Nintendo is completely uncontested in that respect.